Hi everybody, welcome to another episode with myself and Stephen. Back in the flow in 2024 now. This will be our third episode, I think, of the year. So where the hell did Christmas go? Where did 2023 go? Absolutely unbelievable. So we've got another one which we've actually come to, I think, as a joint decision. I'm going to claim it as a joint one because we've had
sharing.
it on. Yeah, we've had this on the list for a while. I'm an only child, so I struggle with the whole sharing thing. But no, it's been on the list for a while, so I don't think anybody can go far enough back and claim it. So this one's very simple. We are titling it "We're All Different," which I know doesn't sound like rocket science. However, we have a serious point at the end of it. As I've started, I'm going to let Stephen carry on. So when I say we're all different,
cheers.
what do you think?
Yeah, do you know what? It's such an amazing subject matter, and I think it will resonate with everybody out there.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as it's very simple to say it, I think sometimes it's very easy to forget it. That we are all different, and we all bring different things to the table. And I've had the benefit of being able to spend a longer period of time with my son towards the back end of last year, and it suddenly dawned on me that you couldn't find two opposite people. You know, his dad is very energetic, quite motivated. Find it quite easy to talk to people and get around, even though sometimes I find it difficult. But I kind of push myself. Where my son would quite happily, stay in a corner, say very little, only speak if someone really speaks to him. And I can imagine having a dad like me sometimes is a pain in the backside. I totally can imagine that. And even growing up, I can imagine some of the conversations he would have had with his friends and various things. But the point I want to make is he's found his way. He's now graduated. He's doing a year's foundation where he's actually out there getting real hands-on experience in videography. He's been on a few movies. He's done a few series. He's been traveling up and down the country. He's spent 2 weeks away from home. Looking after himself around lots of people, and he's holding his own, and he's having the best time of his life. And what it just made me think of was, we all get there, but we'll get there differently, and our route to the destination will be different because we are different. How we receive information, how we articulate, how we build relationships is different. And it's worth sometimes just taking that time to think that actually, and I'm sure there's parents out there as I speak, or carers out there, or guardians out there as I speak, that may be having issues with their teenage children right now, adolescents. I can imagine what I remember what that feels like. And I guess my message is don't despair, don't worry too much, because actually they will get there, but the way in which they get there will be different to you because they are different. And sometimes I think we look at people and we want them to do things in the way that we do it. We want them to sound the way we sound. We want them to maybe use the words that we use. And actually, that's not always possible. Our DNAs are different for a reason. Even the DNAs of two twins are different for a reason. We're all unique in our own way, and we all bring something different to the table. So yeah, that's my starter for 6.
Nice.
How does that make you feel?
Yeah. No, that it's good. I mean, the immediate things that there are so many, but one of the things that dives in when you're talking with young people, is one of my major frustrations. It was the education system, and really, I don't want to crap on it. All I want to say to any parents who are struggling with their kids through school, just consider that it might not be your kids, and just consider that the kids may not be suited to a system which is very much geared around a certain type of personality. And I know this only too well from my own personal experience as a very sporty, non-academic individual at school, hated academic work. But at home, my son and daughter, two polar opposites. My son, very intelligent lad, absolutely not interested in school, but he's now 25 and he's finding himself a very, very successful career. But if you were to judge him on his school performance, you would despair. And the amount of time he'd spend on his Xbox and things like this, you'd be forgiven for thinking this boy was not going to achieve anything. But he's already doing very, very well with none of the qualifications that you would expect he needed. Daughter, on the other hand, the system works well for her. She works really hard. She gets it. It clicks. Got excellent A levels. She's now studying law at the local university, and she's getting on pretty well on that course. She finds it hard, but she's getting on well with it because it just works for her, and that's okay. What's not okay is obviously to consider that your kid is a problem. If they are reacting badly or if they're not achieving results, there's a damn good reason, and it will be because they are not engaged. And that is the case every single time. It is about the fact that can you keep them engaged? And I feel it's exactly the same in the business environment as well. So as we move through past youth into adulthood, at any age, if you are not engaging people, then they will not give of their best. They'll come nowhere near their best. And in fact, I work with a tool that is owned by a company called Gallup, and Gallup are massive on statistics. If you don't know them, well worth checking out and having a geek out on it. And they talk about employee engagement a lot. And there's a State of the Global Workplace report that I bang on about. I won't bang on about it here, which just really points to that. And the large part of it is in work, most people are not being asked to do what they do best every single day. And it's madness. It's absolute utter madness. It really does drive me nuts, because one of the first things I ever do with clients, and it's one of the things I started the business doing, and I'm still doing it now nearly 8 years on, is I get someone to take their Clifton Strengths Assessment, which is the report of all reports. You've heard of DISC, you've heard of Myers-Briggs and things like that. Forget them. Honestly, they are just not what they need to be anymore. They're fine, they're top level, they give you a bit of information, but this one drills down into huge amounts of detail. And what it really highlights to us is that everybody isn't just a little bit different, they're a lot different. So what it does, without boring you too much, there is 35 themes of strength that you get, and in your report you're allocated what your top 5 are. And all I need to say is there's a 1 in 33 million chance that somebody else out there will have the same top 5 as you with the same order of strengths. And the only thing you need to take from that is that we are all obviously very, very different. And if you're asking people in a work environment, or any environment really, to do things that routinely go against their natural talents, their natural strengths, then you are not going to get a lot from them. Now, I always give the perfect example. You've got 10 people doing a job, maybe it's a call centre operative job or something like that, but let's just assume the job description is exactly the same. All I can guarantee you right now, and it is a guarantee, it's not an estimate, I'm not guessing, all 10 of those people will be giving you different levels of standards. Now, it might be they're all doing very badly because it doesn't fit any of their skill sets. The chances are there might be 1 or 2 who it does suit, which means then, you've got 7 or 8 people who it doesn't suit. Because if all you're doing is giving them a role to do and get on with it, well, they've got a certain different way that they're going to do it. And that's the only other guarantee I can give you, is all 10 people will do that job completely differently. So if you're expecting all 10 people to do it your way, again, it's not going to happen. So you kind of set me off a little bit here, but it is my number one bugbear, because it's the first thing I do with clients is I get them to what I call reconnect with themselves. And I use that tool as part of the process. And then when I go into employers, I just think, do you actually know your people? And none of them do. I'm not even going to say some of them do. None of them really know. They think they do. And the better ones have got a better idea. But there's no really easy way of finding out. So, yeah, we're all different 100%. And no one really takes that in. No one's too sweeping, Oliver. But very few people take that into consideration. And it really pisses me off. And I'll breathe. Over to you.
Breath. Yeah, and it borders on this thing around time, doesn't it, and communication, in that in order to understand that we're all different, you've got to take the time to communicate and get to know the people around you. Mm-hmm. And, sadly, I think sometimes we're too quick to reply with our answer, that we haven't really listened to what's being said. Yeah. And, and I know we've talked about that historically on podcasts, but for me, it's, to identify that we're all different, you've got to spend the time communicating and talking to find that out. Yeah. And, dare I say it, I think, we just don't spend enough time really getting to know people really understanding, what their likes and dislikes are, understanding, what might cause them fear. And we've talked about, the fight, flight or freeze before. If we haven't, we will do. Watch this space, because we do one of those things. And for me, fear is created in our minds first, and so much as of that's around what we think, but also how how we think people think about us, and how much time they're giving us, and do they really know us? Are they really interested in me? Do they really give a shit?
Yeah.
And I think all these things add into this. We are all different, and I think once we get to the point that we appreciate that we're all different, I think you then come different yourself in terms of how you then communicate and talk to people. And I think it's probably one of those, I would say it's a top 5 for me in terms of appreciations that we need to have as humans. It needs to be in our top 5. And if it's not, I would definitely employ everyone out there to go and spend some time understanding what does that mean that we're all different? What does it actually mean? Because I think what it will get you to look at is actually treating people differently in terms of, I'm not saying that, there's a word that bantered around quite a lot about bespoke. I think one of our issues is because we're in a world where, someone goes copy paste, we get a rule, 10 rules, and we apply those rules to everybody. Doesn't work. Yeah. We're all individual. We all need to be treated in a certain way to get the best out of us. And I often use the football analogy. If you look at some of the greatest managers of all time, I believe the reason why they are great is because they had that ability to treat people in a way that worked for the individual. They didn't try to do a one size fits all. And what they're able to do is have these little conversations with different people. Some people needed the arm around the shoulder. Some people needed a push. Some people needed to hold hands. Different ways of communicating to get the best out of people. And when you start understanding that we're all different, and actually you need to take the time to do that, I think the results, Oliver, are really amazing. And I mean, and not just business. I'm talking relationships. I'm talking partnerships. I'm talking growth. I'm talking families. When you start to really understand what that actually means, it really does. I think personally, it really does allow you to be a different person yourself. And I mean, I always think back to when I was a kid, and my cousins used to absolutely take the rip out of me because of the way I walked, to the point where they would mimic my walk, and it was quite comical. But what it actually made me realize, I was different to them. And they were laughing at me, and we're having a laugh and joke, but actually they recognized that I was a bit different. And actually that wasn't a bad thing, even though they were taking the rip out of me. And I often talk about my cousin Jason and Gary. Like, they would literally be rolling on the floor, literally, because it was that funny. And I still walk that way today, which is kind of like, I don't walk like a duck, I walk kind of inwards. But that was me, that was my differential to them. And I just think we need to embrace that we're all different. And it also goes into the realms of, when you think about racism, the reason why racism exists is because one person looks at someone else, and because they're different, they attack them because of their differences. And so this is this subject matter can be huge and can go into different areas. We talk about inclusion, which is the word of the moment. But again, it's once you accept that we are all different, it changes your behavior. It changes the way that you are around people. And I think it's one of those things, if you get it right, I think there's nothing more, for me, nothing more romantic, nothing more exhilarating when you accept people for what they are, that they are different to you.
Yeah, no, good. I like that. That was slightly less ragey than mine, so I liked it. And one of the things that really kept sticking in my head, and I wanted to sort of lock it there when you were talking, was about time. And I'm going to aim more at companies, but this isn't specifically a business thing, but it is mainly, and like not having enough time, and the actual BS that is that response. Because here's the scenario that I would like anybody to think about. So yeah, in the short term, to find out what makes people tick, it's going to take time, and that time is going to take you away from work. But consider this. I would say that as many as 6 to 7 of your out of 10 of your staff are disengaged, which means they're probably working at 50-60% capacity of what they can do. So how inefficient is that? So you haven't got time to find out what makes them work best. So you're prepared to get potentially half of what they can give you from them. That is insane. You have time to do it. Everybody has time to do it. Make time, because then in the medium to long term, the amount of time you will regain by getting possibly twice as much, certainly 2/3 as much out of people without having to beat them. They will willingly do it because, you know, your purposes are a bit more aligned, or maybe totally aligned. Your strategies are a bit more aligned or totally aligned. And what they're asked to do on a daily basis gets them to do what they do best more often than not, if not all the time. This is not hard stuff, yet we don't ever seem to do it. And I know we would be considered and accused of being biased because we're people skills specialists, but that's why we do it. Because we're very, very frustrated with how freaking easy this stuff is and how bloody difficult everybody makes it. And, you know, the amount of clients I've had, and people who haven't become clients that I've had conversations with who are frustrated about their staff. And what the bombshell that is, it's all your fault. It's not their fault. It is your fault. And I would love to hear anybody who would tell me otherwise, because I've not heard anybody give me a good reason. I've had excuses, but I haven't had any good reasons for how it's not the company's fault. It's always the staff. It isn't. It's yours, because they're not engaged. They don't care. They're not they're not engaged and embracing whatever it is you think they should be. And the amount of times I'll talk to quite good companies and they'll say that they feel their staff are engaged. Am I in a monologues going bullshit? Because you're having to tell me it. I'm not hearing it from anybody else. You're telling me they're engaged. Now, it is a nice place to work, but these people don't really care. Not in the way you think they do. So yeah, that's a really interesting one, because I feel it's one of the things that's incredibly easy to ignore, but it's also incredibly easy to fix. But neither seem to happen. You know, it's a strange one.
No, you're right, and it really is as simple as make the time and understand that everyone's different. And I'll just throw this out there. So if you're a small organisation below 50 individuals, each one of those individuals are unique and will need you to come differently to make it work for each one of them. So imagine if you've got an organisation of 1,000, okay? This is when it gets really interesting. And you're trying to do a one-size-fits-all. You've got no chance. You have got no chance. No. You know, you need to find ways of drilling that down in order that, you know, everyone isn't just a number, that everyone is unique. And I'll share this with you, you know, my kind of final point before I wrap up. My career has had its good parts and its not so good parts. It's had its very successful parts and it's had its unsuccessful parts. But I can guarantee my successful parts of my career have always been around treating people in such a way as individuals that their delivery is off the chart. So I'm successful not because of what I've done, but because of how I've made people feel and what they've been able to achieve because of the way I've made them feel. And that's treating people individually in a nutshell. You know, and that's how you get people to really, really believe in the overall objective, believe in the plan, believe in, you know, the growth, believe in the strategy. You know, you've got to go one step further. You've got to understand, well, how are they going to be able to add into that strategy? What uniqueness do they have?
Yeah.
You know, what specialties do they have? And I'll just share one last thing with you. I can't share the company because it would give it away. But let's just say one of my clients decided to sit down with an individual and spend some real one-on-one time with them. And they found out that this individual could do something that they needed, but they weren't aware of it. And let's just say that the saving over a whole year will be £1 million.
Bloody hell.
£1 million saving because there was someone in their organisation that could do something that they were farming out because they hadn't spent the time talking to this person and understood what they did in their spare time, to a very high level as well. It was no joke. And that really, sort of made me realise, it is absolutely right. We've got to spend the time getting to know people more, treating them as individuals, treating them as, a separate DNA, and that way we'll get the best out of them.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, that's a perfect way to finish, because that's as simple as it is. Because we don't know what we don't know, and I bet that person possibly at times might have even thought, I wonder why they're doing this, because I could do it, but they didn't feel that they could open up, did they? They didn't feel that they could communicate
totally
it.
Yeah.
So it's insane, and it only frustrates me because it's silly.
Yeah,
it's the word of the day. It's silly to not recognise that we're all different. And the only final point that I would make is this goes outside of work. So when you're dealing with people that perhaps irritate and annoy you, well, just think about how are you going about what you're doing, because you might find them annoying, but it might actually be down to you and the way you give them information, the way you engage with them. It is most likely something to do with you. Maybe it is you give them too much time. Maybe you need to exit that person from your world, from your circle and things like that. But it's ultimately you control it. You have the power. You have the ownership of it. And that's the thing that I really like about this stuff is you can own it. So yeah, for me, that's a really powerful one. I have nothing further to add. Do you have any final points?
We're all different. Let's embrace the differences that we all have.
Nice. Excellent. Hope you've all enjoyed that one. Nice meaty one. And we'll see you on the next.
Bye for now.